Okay, so today is Ignite Elementals 4. So we're all the way done with the Spark. We're halfway done with the Elementals portion. And now we're getting down to kind of the nitty gritty. And today we're talking about seller appointments. I think this is going to be a good one. And we'll be reiterating what we already have learned and then looking at some action items around that. So making seller appointments and getting listings. Is that under grow or run your business?
Run.
When you grow your business, that's
Grow.
right. Okay, so we're growing our business with making seller appointments, having seller appointments, making seller presentations, and getting listings. We've already covered the basics, and this will build on what we've already established. Okay, what sellers want. We're going to look at what they want and how that affects the conversations you have with them. Before the appointment, we're going to look at best listing appointment, and they're just a continuation of the ongoing conversation you're having. And then we'll talk about how to prepare yourself and your future seller to get the most out of the appointment. Then we're going to look at the listing presentation to cover what a good listing presentation is, how what it should achieve. And then the listing appointment, we're going to talk about what you should do in the appointment to establish yourself as the local market expert, gather information you need to market and sell the home. So after today, you're going to understand the full expectations and how to have a successful listing. So how sellers found their agent. Again, this is from NAR 2019 Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers. So 39% of sellers either knew their listing agent or were referred to their listing agent. So that was a friend, a neighbor, or a relative. And then it's the highest percentage of how someone found their agent. 27% used the agent that they had previously used to buy or sell their home. 5% chose their realtor after being personally contacted by them. 4% found their agent through a website. 3% found their agent visiting an open house. The other 22% is made up of other methods like for sale by owner, open house, referral through another agent or their employer, direct mail, social media, etc. What do you see, and what are you thinking when you're looking at this data?
I think two things. One, our sphere is very, very important.
Yes.
And two, the 22% of other, there's still so many other ways to reach out to those people.
Right. So with the greatest numbers here, so if you look at the 39%, the 27%, and the 22%, it's a pretty solid section of what sellers want from your sphere, which is your neighbors, friends, relatives, your past clients, and then a couple of the other venue or avenues. And that's what we've talked about. And you pick what you're going to use in your target market and your target audience, and it should directly attach to your sphere and to past clients. And then you should only have a couple of other avenues, but those other avenues are going to bring a great return. What I thought also was interesting, okay, so 5% chose their realtor after being personally contacted by them. So does that not fit right along with what we're talking about doing here, and door knocking and farming and calling? Okay. And then 4% found through a website. We all have agent websites, so it's really important that we make sure that that is reflecting our value proposition, right? And that we're utilizing it. Okay. And then 3% found by open houses. So literally, if we're just applying what we learned today, and we don't have to do anything crazy, we're just taking Ignite and we're applying each session as we're learning it. And that's why we have the success habits. It's going to literally, the data shows that this is following along exactly what sellers want. So that's great news. That should give you guys confidence in what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you can feel very uncertain. And when you're first starting out, it takes a while to see the results, right? So you can kind of go, oh, I don't know, I don't know. But what I'm seeing is if we're looking at you guys on this chart, you can hit your name can go in each slice of the pie. So that's pretty awesome. That means you have the most opportunity out of, if we're even talking about competition, out of our competitors. You guys have all your bases covered because you're doing the success habits. So are you surprised to hear that that 75% of sellers were only in contact with one agent before they selected their selling agent?
Yeah, I think I think that it really shows how great the agents working their database and keeping in contact, because 27% used their agent again. So that means that agent have had to be top of mind for them.
Exactly. They gotta remember their name.
Mm-hmm.
The old stat said, I think it was higher than the 75%, but it was like 87% of people would use their previous realtor if they could only remember their name. And especially if you're only buying or selling every 7 to 10 years, right? But that's thinking the finite game. That's just thinking one person you're only able to do business with them, and it's just a business transaction. When you look at it like a relationship and you can plug into those referrals, that's 39% of how they're getting a recommendation. So if you're just in touch with your past clients and you're just contacting your sphere for referrals, that's the greatest amount of sellers and where they're finding their agents. So you're hitting the nail on the head. Only 15% of sellers talk to 2 realtors before making their decision. Out of all the sellers, rarely, if you're the first one to the door, are you going to have any competition. If you're the first one to have a conversation about, I can help you sell your home, very rarely are you even going to be in competition with somebody else. And then you have to remember all the value that you have and the company that you're working with has for that seller. And so it's really not even a competition. Just have confidence in that. So how important does this make your first impression?
Very.
Very. And as we're talking about our value proposition, knowing what that is, knowing clearly and having clarity on how to present that's going to make all the difference. That's where the difference is. If you guys were on the call yesterday with Kathy on how to make $150,000, what was the difference, the key thing that had to increase to make more money from your regular production, your regular gross commission income to 150,000 to even $1 million? What was the thing that had to change every time?
Your skill set.
Your skill set, your conversion, right? Your conversion has to increase if you're going to make more money. So what this is telling us, though, is literally you're more likely to have a conversion by having a conversation. So if you're not having as many conversations as you can about real estate and how to help people and meet their needs, then you're leaving yourself. You're neglecting your business. So think about it like that. So it makes that you need to know who you are and how you can help them and be able to explain it with clarity. All right, so here is another table on what a good first impression can look like. So what do sellers want from their agent? So 21% want someone to help market their home. 20% want them to help sell in a specific time frame. 19% want them to price the home competitively. 16% say help fix up the home and sell for more. 13% to help find a buyer, and 11% is other. And let's look at the other. Other is help with paperwork, inspections, and negotiation. So what do you guys thinking when you see this out of what the sellers want from the agent?
They want to get the home. So, and they really look to you to be able to help them do that or to get that done.
Yeah, and it's really to me, you know, we talked about what is the basis of what a seller or a buyer wants, and they want it at the best price in the shortest time frame with the least amount of problems. And those problems are going to be, you know, the hiccups that are going to come, it's going to really be different per scenario. And some people, you know, are going to, based on their personality as well, they're going to be looking for some different things, but all of this is in your expertise and in your skill set. We're all learning how to market a home at best. Right now, we're talking tactics on how to do that digitally. How to sell the home in a specific time frame. Well, that's market knowledge. You need to look at the days on the market, average price point, all of that, and we know how to do that. Help price the home competitively. Same deal. That's market knowledge, knowing what the market's doing and watching that. Fixing up the home, you know, just knowing what the competitors are doing, what's selling in the market, and that can be just some advice of simply as of declutter, right? It doesn't have to be like wallpaper suggestions, right? But just knowing what is moving in the market, and then help find a buyer, again, back to marketing the home, and then being knowledgeable with what the market's doing, what the interest rates look like, knowing lenders and putting it out to your sphere. That's going to help attract the buyer if you make it marketable. And then on the other, that's just paperwork and things. And so again, you're the expert on all of that. And just because in the beginning they don't say they need your help with paperwork and negotiations, doesn't mean that that's not what they're looking for. So you need to have a good fiduciary relationship with your client and to make sure that you're conveying that you want them to net the most money. And that makes the conversations easier when you do have to do a price correction. And this is going to be the total value you bring to the transaction is going to be and get you referred business if you're able to do all of these things. Any other thoughts from the table? Does anybody feel unprepared to do any of these things? Okay, so process to listing. So we want to convert the lead to a listing. What tools have you learned about and are using to process from a lead to a listing? Hint is on the screen.
The pre-listing questionnaire?
Yeah, we've got the pre-listing questionnaire, right? Where you're qualifying where they are, their expectations, their motivation, and how soon they want to sell. And then you're able to schedule the listing appointment after you're able to understand their motivation. You're going to set that appointment. And then you'll have a pre-listing presentation that you're send over. And we already talked about a little bit of that, but that's an opportunity to talk more about you and the value that you can provide so that when you get to the listing presentation, you're able to talk about them and their home. The listing presentation is where you have a more detailed how to market their home, and you're talking about their home. And then the home walkthrough and the appointment is you're going to walk through the home, tell them that you want to see it through the buyer's eyes, and look at all ways to market the property, maybe some things that need to be touched up, fixed up prior to listing. And then you're able to present the listing presentation to secure the listing. So each step asserts your value in the value proposition to the seller, and it brings them closer to signing with you. We looked a little bit at the listing presentation in Spark, working with sellers, and now we're going to deep dive into a listing appointment and presentation. So you see how all of these steps you're building that rapport, you're building that trust, you're building that relationship with the seller, right? You guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before the appointment, you're gonna do a lot more listening than talking before you actually get to the appointment. You can't meet their needs unless you know them, and you can't know them if you don't listen. So this shows the seller that you're attentive and you're interested in their needs by giving them plenty of space to tell their story. And we talked about this before, the Ford method, right? If you don't know what to say, ask about them. In Spark, we talked about identifying A, B, and C sellers. So what is it to be a C seller?
You know what you want. You know when you want it. You
But
re
that
you
timeline
really.
is a couple months away, right? At
Mm-hmm.
least 60 days away. So what is a B seller?
Between 30 and 60 days.
This actually says between 15 and 60 days, but it could be 30 and 60 days too, right? And this is someone ready, willing, and able who's raised their hand, but they're not quite ready, but they're not too far off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then their A seller is somebody that's ready within a couple weeks. So you guys could break it down though to be A, B, and C. It's C at 90 days, B at 30 days, B at 60 days, and A at 30 days. Because
Right.
it really does depend on the seller. The point is you want to know if they're ready, willing, and able, and by when. And then you can qualify them. So whatever makes sense to you, it's not a one size fits all. Sellers have been thinking about selling their home for a bit, so they may have expectations about the pricing and timeline they want you to meet. Their expectation may be reasonable or it may not be reasonable. Their motivation and time frame needs to be looked at, as well as their expectations. So you need to be able to work with the seller to adjust their expectations once you know what they're thinking. So here are the goals of the pre-listing, before the listing appointment. This is what you want to do. State your value. It states the value that you will provide as their listing agent. Remember that sellers have specific goals they want to achieve, and this is the first step in discovering their goal and telling them how you will help them achieve their goals. Pre-selling. It builds the seller's confidence and answers questions in advance of the presentation. Buyers use an agent because they want advice and expertise. Make them feel better. They better understand the process is an important part of the value proposition. And then saving time. The pre-listing packet tackles the common obstacles to make the consultation shorter and smoother. So once you've pre-qualified the seller and scheduled the listing appointment, you will send that pre-listing packet. You will find a pre-listing packet in your Ignite toolkit, and you may customize that one. It's a great way to start, or create your own. Once you're comfortable, you can even have a conversation with your seller about the topics in the pre-listing presentation. Understand the goals of the pre-listing presentation and meet them in a way that works best for you. What are some of the biggest questions anyone about to sell their home will ask?
How fast can you sell it?
How quickly can it be sold?
How much can they get for it?
How much can they get for it? Is it a good market?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You need to know all of those questions. What objections do you imagine you'll encounter in some of these conversations? We already talked about them. Time. What?
Some might ask, why should I use you instead of doing it myself?
Well, that's a very good objection. Pricing, they're gonna, objection around a price, objection around how quickly or how not so quickly things will sell, closing cost, and then commission. You can always assume that those things are going to be the biggest questions that a seller has. And so if we can go ahead and handle those objections, then we are ready to, one, save time. You're able to state your value more clearly, and you're able to secure that listing appointment and listing. So the pre-listing presentation. So this is in Command. I showed you guys the other day how to access this. Did you guys find that okay in the Command designs? Does anybody else need me to show you again?
I've played with it before. It's just not fresh on my mind. I have to play with it to
Yeah,
get to it.
it's in the design section, and if you click to create a new one, you go to print, and this will be in there under seller, and it has a couple of different options in there. And again, you can use, there's several pages, you can use as many or as little as you'd like, and you can convert it to like a PowerPoint and send that over, or you can simply, some people have them printed and send them. You can send it in a PDF to someone and email it over. The idea is to get that information to them to have a smooth listing appointment. And so it's just got some tidbits and pro tips and everything in there to make them feel more confident in who you are and your ability and value. It can really look like however you choose it to look like. And the longer you're in the business and the more you do it, it will become, you know, very part of your system. So why is the pre-listing appointment important, or not appointment, pre-listing presentation important?
With the pre-listing presentation, you kind of you can tell them a little bit about you, your value proposition. So basically when you get there, it's all about listing the house.
Right. Because honestly, I didn't do pre-listing. No one taught me to do pre-listing before I would go on a listing appointment. And they can get kind of lengthy. I'm sure Vicki would agree. If you have not set the stage and the precedent of who you are and how you can help them and what they can expect up front, then you're going to spend a lot more face-to-face time. Plus, we know as many times as you touch somebody, that's always a good thing because you're building that rapport and relationship. So this is just another way to touch them and solidify the relationship. The listing presentation contains specific information about their home, and the pre-listing is more about you and the value that you can offer in listing their home and marketing their home. The listing presentation contains your plan to market it. It contains comps. It contains where you're talking about pricing strategy, and then other information to show them that you're going to achieve their goals and expectations in selling their home. The pre-listing just really contains information about house selling in general and how you sell a home. It's your resume, if you will. You put that out there as your marketable resume. And then once you have the listing, they get to either accept or decline you as their listing person. And so this is more of the interview process, if you will. So again, the listing presentation is in Command, Designs, and is under listing presentation. There's a couple of different templates in there. Play with it as much as you would like. You can customize it, and it just is a way to make a great impression. And that's what we talked about, right? The first impression, and build the seller's confidence in you. It also, you could or could not share the pricing recommendation in the pre-listing, but in the listing, you definitely want to. The reason you wouldn't want to before the listing, before the appointment, is because they could just go ahead and make up their mind. But you want to leave that conversation until you're able to have that appointment with them. The listing presentation also sets expectations for how you're going to market the home and how you're going to work with them, what they can expect from you. And these are the templates where you can find them in Command Designs. So we want to be sure when we're doing the listing presentation and the pre-listing, we go back to the table of what the seller wants, right? What did we say the seller wants?
To get that house sold.
Right. To market the home, to sell it in a specific time, to price competitively, to maybe fix up or call out things that need to be repaired in order to make it marketable, and to help find the buyer. So if we are hitting on all those points, and this highlights the your needs come first in the listing presentation packet template, is the reason why it's there is because to hit on all of those to make sure that you're conveying that you're going to market their home, you're going to sell it within their specific time frame. And the pre-listing questionnaire that you had with them allows you to what? Know what their motivation is, know what their time frame is, so that you're able to touch on that when you talk to them. Let's see. It's going to go a long way in earning current and future business if you're able to convey that their needs come first. And I would not, if you're going to customize that template, leave this page in there, right? To make sure that you're able to convey that verbally, but then also with that as well. And you always want to be ready to take notes. So have a notepad with you, have something with you, and don't be afraid to take notes as you're having the conversation. They're going to feel like, one, you're listening to what they're saying and that you're hearing them, and then that helps you serve them as well. Does anybody have questions about the listing presentation? If you are taking bold or have taken it, they always give a PowerPoint format for the listing presentation and the buyer consultation. I know Adam and the Global Homes guys have done that here in our office as well. And what they just took was the format from Bold and then just edited it to match their market. I can get that and share that on our Facebook group as well. But it's very simple. And then if you're doing the new Bold, I believe they'll probably be sharing something like that, where there's a listing presentation PowerPoint format. And the reason you would do that is just to make sure that you again, like a script, you're getting everything out that you want to get out. You're conveying who you are, how you can help them, why it's important to price and look at the market, and then how you're going to market their home and how you can meet their expectations. Does anybody have any questions about the listing presentation? Everybody's mastered it and they feel really confident in it.
No, I'm not mastering it. I would love to, as we discussed yesterday in our PC meeting with speaking, I would love to go on a listing presentation.
Okay. Well, and that's what's wonderful about you guys in the PC program, because I know you're going to dive deep and drill into how to make sure each person has their perfect listing presentation, or not, I mean, as perfect as possible, but has mastered that skill, because that's the one thing that we know to increase conversion is to master these skills. And so, Vicki, I know that that's part of what you guys are going to be working on. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say to be working on mastering those buyer consultations and those listing presentations.
We offer her services.
Yeah. So to make sure that that's part of what's being covered, and that you're spending time, for those of you that were in the Craig Zuber class, when he before all this craziness started, we were in the training room, and he was on video, and what he really talked about was how to master the listing presentation, and that all your other things will come. So we know that a good balanced business is 50% buyer, 50% sellers. Yet the sellers have the opportunity, when you have a listing, you have the opportunity to gain market share, to gain mind share, to gain buyers. When you have the buyer, very rarely do you have the opportunity to get the other side of the deal. But when you have the listing, you always have the opportunity to gain more business. And you really could get 2 for 1. So you get one listing, you have the opportunity to sell their home and potentially represent them as a buyer, right, to find their new home, and then to attract a buyer to that listing. So you really can get a great return on listings. And if you guys can master this and focus on this, it's going to change everything for you guys. You get a lot more return from this. And
Katie,
yeah, go ahead.
And I kind of explained it to them this way as well. when when you are working with a buyer, it's basically you and that buyer. When you're working for them, when you have a listing, you got all the realtors working for you because you don't know who's looking for what. So when
Exactly.
you list a property, yeah, yeah.
So when you when you have a listing, you can take 12, 15, 20 listings in a month. You can physically, you can. You'll be very busy, yet you can do it because those are stationary things that you're marketing and you're selling and you're having appointments with the sellers. Rarely do you have multiple face-to-face appointments and commutes with the seller. Now you're constantly in contact with them, but it's not necessarily a ton of the face-to-face. If you master what we're talking about right now with the pre-listing questionnaire, with the pre-listing packet information, whatever, and the listing appointment, once you hit those three, you master that, your business is going to explode and blow up because that's where the conversion is. And we know that 75% of sellers aren't even looking at another realtor. So if you can get that appointment and secure that appointment, then you're going to be able to sell and you're going to be able to attract. You can sell homes from the beach. You can sell homes from your living room. You can sell homes wherever you are. You cannot service buyers like that, though. Buyers are a lot of hands-on, time-intensive situations. So if you are to gear your business one way or the other, you're going to have buyers. That goes without saying. But if you focus on lead generating for sellers, that's going to have the greatest impact on your time, and that's the greatest leverage to have to grow your business, is to focus on sellers. And I don't know why some people are more nervous with sellers than buyers, but I've worked both. And if I go back to sales sometime, I'm just going to do listings. So I would even refer out a buyer because you can just do it so quickly and it's very easy to master how to do that. You're going to have really the same conversations, and it's a lot about being in control of the conversation and know which questions to ask. A lot of times with a buyer, you're trying to find a needle in the haystack and you're trying to, do all this other stuff. With a seller, like they're either ready to sell or they're not. It's very cut and dry. Let's see, who's on the call today? Who do we have? We got Vicky, Shacarol, and Tiffany. Is that right?
I think Tiffany's still off.
I think Tiffany is off. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you guys, Vicky, I know you'll make sure that they do a mock listing presentation to make sure that they create their material and get that done. So I don't have to worry about, because they're in your program. So I don't have to worry about that. We're not going to focus on that today. Yet just know how to get comfortable being uncomfortable, practicing that, knowing what you're going to say, and how to handle objections. So we talked about some of them. Some of the objections are going to be, why should I use a realtor besides instead of selling it myself? And how do you handle that objection?
I would let them know what I'm capable of, give them my values, give them what I offer, give them the information that they need that I know that they probably could not have gotten on their own.
Well, that's exactly right. And you have to remember that for sell by owners think they're going to make more money because they're not paying a commission, but they're not thinking about how oftentimes, what is it? NAR says it's like 12%. They make 12% less on average by selling their home themselves because they don't know what the market's doing. And go ahead.
Katie, let me ask you this. When they come to you with, that thing that they send out, is it once a year? I think it's once a year that they send it out, and it kind of tells you the value of their home. A lot of them will go by that.
Yeah, the tax assessment.
That's the tax assessment sheet.
And that's not necessarily reflective of what the market's doing, and it's not
right.
accurate.
Okay, so okay, and that's what I've said.
Yeah,
This doesn't reflect what the market is doing.
right,
Mhm.
right.
Okay,
And that's why, as we're becoming market experts, that is extremely valuable because you're going to have these conversations over and over and over and over and over. And as long as you're watching the market frequently and you're not forgetting to do that in every day, every week, just know what's really happening, then you can have those conversations. And you can know, like, these NAR studies are extremely valuable because it'll show for sale by owner stats and how much, how long they eventually go before they invite a realtor. And there's a lot of scripts around that. So, Mr. Fisbo, how long do you plan on listing it yourself before hiring a realtor? Oftentimes they're like 30 days from now. Okay, great. Well, I would love to preview your home because I'm constantly working with buyers and we want to know all of the inventory both on and off the market. So could I please schedule a time to preview your home? Certainly, right? And then you leave them with some information about who you are, right? No pressure, right? And then say, Mr. Fisbo, now if I bring a buyer, are you willing to pay me my 3% commission? And they confirm, get that in writing, and then say, okay, well, I'll keep you in mind. Thank you so much. And then follow back up with them. Hey, Mr. Fisbo, I still see your sign in the yard. How is it going listing your home? At that point, they're fed up with it. People have just wanted to stop and look and do all this, that, and the other. And they just thought it was going to be so simple and so easy. And so you just build that relationship and build that rapport, whether you're door knocking, whether you're calling, just letting them know that, and don't pretend to have a buyer if you don't have a buyer, but you can definitely say, we have buyers looking in the area, and I need to know as an expert what's on and off the market. That makes you look very impressive. So having that conversation, they're always going to know, why should I pay you 6%? Well, 6% doesn't go to me, Mr. Seller. 3% goes to me, and then I have to pay a percentage to my brokerage and office for the value they provide in marketing your home at a high level and on a national format. And all this technology that we are marketing your home with, I pay a percentage to them. And then also I pay a percentage in taxes to the government. So really, out of the 6%, that's not a true statement and a reflection of what I'm earning, but I plan on earning the 3% that I'm going to take to my broker, and from that gross commission, I'm going to earn very much with all of these things, right? And you're having the conversation and saying, and that's why our listing agreement has an expiration on it, Mr. Seller. If you're ever unhappy with what I'm doing and we're not seeing results, I'm going to have a conversation with you weekly to keep you up to date on the market and what's going on. If you're ever unhappy and you're not feeling like this is, I'm not earning my commission per se, we can terminate the listing, right? But you want to paint it out there where you see what their objection is and how you're truly handling it. So you're taking
right.
what's negative and putting it into a conversation where it's a positive and it's something where they'll see your value. You want to turn everything around on how you're going to bring value. It's all about the value, and focus on not their objection, but how you're able to handle that. Okay, so now we're going to look at the listing appointment itself. The home walkthrough. So when you arrive to the seller's home, it's important to establish yourself as a knowledgeable professional right away. Greet your clients, thank them for the opportunity, and ask them if you can leave your things in the kitchen while you conduct your home walkthrough. Why do we suggest you leave your things in the kitchen?
Because it was something said about taking them to the kitchen table. It's
Yeah, because you don't want to get stuck in a little tiny ottoman seat in the living room. People conduct business at the kitchen table, right?
right. Okay.
So that's where you want to be, right? You want them to think business, everybody to be on the same level,
Right.
everybody to be, belly to belly, face to face. And so if you were to just carry everything around with you and then you get back around to them. They may be wherever. And so you want to paint yourself in a professional light, and having your things at the kitchen table or at the counter there, it allows you to do that. It provides a great space to talk, and it's more familiar and intimate than the living room. And you're asking to be let into the heart of their home. I like that too. So your home walkthrough is going to further inform what you'll write for the listing information, your marketing plan, and your pricing strategy conversation. If at all possible, ask to do the walkthrough alone. It's best to come to conclusions without the homeowner's narrative running through your mind, because they're going to be walking beside you going, oh, this is a picture from our beach vacation in the 90s. This is where I went to school at Auburn. This is our wedding album. This is the quilt my grandma made. None of that is important to how you're going to sell a home. So just say, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to place my things here in the kitchen. And then I'm going to do part of my process is to do a walkthrough, a home walkthrough, as if I were the buyer. So I'm going to be taking notes and looking at things. This will help me with my marketing plan, with the pricing strategy. And so if you guys wouldn't mind just giving me a few moments, I'll be right back with you. And then you wander around yourself, right? And then here is in our toolkit here, it's got a preview home job aid where it's got a little, let's see. Here we go. Previewing a home, and it's got the address. You can put the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, exterior features, interior features, just where you can jot down and it'll make it a lot easier, so that when you have the conversation and when you come back to the table, any gaps you need filled in, you can fill in there. And then also you're always going to want to reference any previous MLS listings and the tax records, because there can be some discrepancies. And so, for instance, anytime they've listed their home before, maybe they mentioned to that realtor that XYZ was part of the home, but that wasn't part of the conversation you had. So you may have to have a follow-up conversation with them and just say, for instance, there's a well in the backyard or whatever, but they didn't mention that to you. So you just want to do some little research cross-referencing to make sure that that is accurate when you do your listing.
And even, Katie, in the square footage, sometimes it have tax records and sometimes it has appraiser. Shouldn't we go with what the appraiser?
Yes, if the home has been appraised recently, you always want to take that. And really, if the homeowner goes, oh, my house is 3,000 square feet. Okay, where are you getting that square footage number from? And you're not asking it to be rude, but that's exactly what a buyer needs to know, is where the information came from. And if it came from the tax records, that's okay, that's fine. The appraisal will be a more accurate measurement on that, and sometimes there can be a discrepancy. So you always want to have the more accurate square footage. That's how you're going to price the home. Okay, you don't want to price the home by square footage just not there. That's not going to ease your problems. It's going to cause some confusion down the line.
Yes.
So that checklist is able to use. All right, so then we have closing the deal. So in the Elementals script book here, let me look at, here we are. It even has a forward script in here. How to call for referrals. Social media. I don't see it. It says Elemental script book. Anyway, so Vicki, how do you close when you're leaving a listing appointment? Oh, you're muted. Okay, go ahead. You're muted.
When they've made the agreement to list with me?
Yes. So how do you've done the home walkthrough, you have talked about their home, gotten down the details, you're ready to have the paperwork out. How do you close?
basically, we go back to the table and I go over with them with what I've seen. I compare what I've seen in their house with the houses that are active and the houses that are sold. So I compare their house to that one, to those two, with updates and all, because I have to say to them, if I say to them how the comps, how they were sold and what they brought to the table compared to what we would need to do to their house, or if they stand in the same comparison as the other ones, we come to the agreement of what we're going to list it for, and I let them know how I'm going to market it and go from there. But I do come back to the table to let them know how their house compared to these prices that I brought as comparables.
Right. And where you got those numbers, right? It's really important to do that
Right.
and to ground them, because you'll find, Shacarol, everybody thinks their home's worth $1 million,
Right.
you know, and they're not looking at the market. And so when you have conversations with them, are you aware these neighbors in your neighborhood have listed, that these have sold? You could even ask them, if you have the printout or you have the technology presentation where you pulled your comps, what would you say were selling features about these homes? What would you say are selling features about your homes, your home? Just have that conversation. It is something that you have to master, though, because it is a little uncomfortable when you first start like digging into the value of their home or what they think is the value of their home.
Right. Because the thing is, they're going to, more than likely, they're going to say, especially if you're lower than what they were thinking, they're going to say, well, this house is this age. My house is, it was the same, it was built in the same year. Why can't I get 190? And you have to be specific. You might have to go to the kitchen and say, this house has granite countertops, and because those things are upgrades. And if those houses are comparing to each other that close, nevertheless, one has granite and the other one don't, that's gonna be looked at. Right.
Well, an fenced in backyard and an updated patio and a pool, garage, and you got to look at all of those things. Or the home can have similar features, but then it has like really dirty, nasty carpet or something. You have to be able to have that fierce conversation where you're addressing the elephant in the room, if you will, because it's your goal not just to list them to list with you, but to be able to sell it. So it needs to be marketable.
Right. And then too, if they got the fascia boards, you see the wood is, beginning to rot, need to be replaced. When they say, well, I'm not going to do anything to it, you also have to bring that to their attention. That's going to be, somebody is going to look at that as not wanting to pay as much as somebody else would. If another,
That's exactly right. And you're just going to have to, Shacarol, and that's the beautiful thing about being in the PC group and able to have the role play conversations with you, because you can throw some of that stuff out there going, well, this seller said they weren't willing to have any open houses. They don't want anybody in their home. Well, okay, well, so how do we handle that objection? And, this person said they want to sell it as is, and they want to sell it for $150,000, but the market says 125 is max, and that's with repairs. So you have to be able to have those conversations with people, and you're going to have some that you walk away from and they're just not going to get over their own mindset. That's okay, right? You're just going to keep going and having more and more conversations at a high level, being the expert, sharpening your skill, and you're going to get enough of the good ones, that adhere to your expertise.
And even when they won't go down and they need to, you might be, before you leave, you might want to come to the agreement with the seller to say, if we don't get any offers within a certain period of time, would you be in agreement then to lower the price?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you always want to say price correction, and you always want to point it back to the market. So when you're having the follow-up conversations, and you want to do that, you don't want them to call you. You want to call them and inform them on what's happening with their home.
Right.
And so that you're able to say, okay, well, this is what the market looks like this week in your neighborhood. There have been this many homes sold. There have been this many showings scheduled, whatever it is, with a summary, so that you can have that conversation to say, okay, remember when we listed, we had the conversation of you really wanted it to list at this home, and we came to the compromise that we would do that at this price. But if there was no traffic, if there was no showings and there were no offers, we would then correct to reflect what the market will support, because we don't make up market data. We just interpret it. Right?
That sounds really, I like that, a price correction.
Correction. Yeah, that's what they say, to say correction instead of reduction. And even when you're marketing it, because when you do, you want to share that out with the MLS, you want to share it with your database that there's been a price correction. You'll see a lot of people say price reduced, price reduced. Price correction just has a better connotation.
I like that.
With it, right?
Would this also be a good time to like get with those other buyer agents and ask them questions like, well, what did your potential buyer say? What was the reason
every
they did
showing
not want?
Exactly, every showing you want to have a follow-up conversation.
Yes.
Supra will send you a notification that there's been a showing on the home and who it was. Some people like to immediately send out, hey, how'd they think? I don't like to do that, because if they're showing property, they're typically have a chunk amount of time and they're looking at property and they're talking to their client. They're not ready for feedback right then, but you do want to make sure that either that a couple hours later or the very next day, but you don't want to give it like a week or two. You want to have a follow-up plan for everybody that shows the home, to ask them what their client thought, and if we can be expecting an offer. And you always want to be giving your seller that feedback, right?
Yeah, I got one of those emails when I went to view my first home, and like as soon as I locked the door, I got an email. It was like, "Don't you think?" I'm like, "I haven't left yet."
Yeah. You
But I
definitely
did reply to them
doing
afterwards.
that. Huh?
I did reply when I got home.
Yeah. So you want to make sure that you're following up. And then there's a way to do reverse prospecting on MLS, where you can view any realtors that have viewed your property. And so that also, you can have follow-up conversations. I personally really enjoyed always doing the realtor. Anytime I had a listing, I did like a realtor lunch or open house kind of thing. And then I did the open house for the public, because you want that realtor feedback. And if there are people selling in that area, that neighborhood, those are the people that are going to come check it out, see if they've got that buyers in the area, whatever. And you give them a little questionnaire to fill out. And so they're able to do that. It's a little bit more difficult now to do virtual. I think you could probably brainstorm around how to do that. But you could definitely get that feedback and give that to the sellers, because oftentimes, especially if it needs a price correction, like if you know the seller priced it at $250,000, but it's only really the market, your suggestion was 200. If you get the realtors in the community involved in saying, this is what it should be listed at, that's going to validate your opinion, right? So they're going to see you a little bit differently that way.
It's kind of them getting a second opinion without having to go anywhere else.
Right, exactly. And leverage your peers on that one. All right. So what are we thinking? What are we feeling? What action items are we going to be doing from this conversation today?
I'm going to be focusing on marketing more towards listing now and not just buyers.
Yeah.
Because when you break it down, I can possibly have 3 transactions with one listing preferred to that just one-on-one with a buyer.
Yes. I learned that lesson the hard way.
Well, thank you for letting me not learn.
But it's like the MREA. It's the MREA model. So it's leads, listings, leverage, goal. Leads, listings, because the listings bring buyers. And some people go, well, why don't you want to work with buyers? It's not about not wanting to work with buyers. It's just about we're being strategic and purposeful, right? So being purposeful means I don't have to drive all over the Tri-County area and show 37 homes. I can have very strategic conversations with several sellers, list their home, market their home, and not have to, do all that other, right? It's a lot less counseling and, having different conversations. All right. So today at 1:30, I want to say 1:30, Jimmy Ann's doing the new contract compliance class. So please be sure to be there for that because we've got some changes to our contract documents. Let me stop recording. Let's see.